Hey everyone, a friendly tree here. The fated day has finally arrived. Season 2 of Tekken 7 is here. I know we got the patch notes a couple of days ago, but I thought you might all enjoy if I go through and show you visually what all the changes are to Nina and how this may affect her gameplay. Alright, so let's get into it. Love the new menus. I love just the background images. The game just looks a lot cleaner, doesn't it?
Welcome to the King of Iron Fist.
Gonna take a while to get used to having Nina in the bottom left over there. We'll go there, and we're gonna use Nina again just in case we need any sort of demonstrations. We're gonna go to the Mishima Dojo, just so if we have anything near the wall we need to talk about, we can. Right, while this is loading, I'm going to show you the patch notes. Now, I'm actually using a PDF from Tekken Gamer, just because I found it easier for me to condense or to put it on one page, opposed to having to show you 2 pages. So you can look at these patch notes. Immediately you can see there's Nina up the top, command on the left column, and changes on the right column. So with the command, the notations are nice and visual for us, so we can tell what everything means. For example, the top one, you can see the 1 button and the 4 button. So if I go back to this view here, you can see 1, 4. So it's meaning the string 1 then 4. Alright. Now when you've got a string like this, the changes are going to be referring to the final hit of the string, okay? So whatever you see here, it's the final input that the patch notes are about. You can also see the directions. So basic notation is a non-coloured in one, so a white arrow means pressing at the same time, while the black, the coloured in ones, means that you hold the input. And then if we come down to the forward 1+2s, you can see the second one, the Japanese notation. I don't know the exact translation, sorry, but I'm sure that's implying hold. And then we've got things such as while rising and approach enemy, which is pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so let's go through from the very beginning. So 1-4 says damage change from 15 to 17, changed from -5 to -4 on block, and changed from plus or minus 0 frames to plus 1 frame on hit. So first off, change from 15 to 17 damage. We're talking about the second hit. So you can see there, the whole thing, it's a 10 frame punish, the natural combo. First hit does 7 damage, second hit now does 17, so it's a total of 24 damage. So that's a buff, that's an increase in damage. So her 10 frame does more damage now, if you use 1-4. Change from -5 to -4 on block. So let's say, let's go standing guard. Let's say the opponent blocks it. Previously, if they blocked it, you would be at -5, now you're at -4. So you're slightly, at a little bit less of a disadvantage if they block it. So that is also a buff for Nina. Then the final one, change from plus or minus 0 frame to change to plus 1 frame on hit. So let's demonstrate this with a repeat action. So previously, if you did this, it was plus or minus 0 frames on hit, meaning that if we both did a jab at the same time, it would trade. But now if I try and do a jab, I lose. Alright? So that's just showing that there's a bit of frame advantage. If I do anything slower, of course, it's not going to work. But I can go under it. Alright. So that's the first one. Second one, forward 2-1-4. Causes screw on counter hit. Now this is where it was important, as I said before, that we're referring to the last hit in the string here. So the forward 2-1-4 string, they're referring to the 4 attack. So on counter hit, the 4 attack causes screw. Because previously, as you'll know, forward 2-1-4, it does cause screw. Last 2 hits natural combo causes screw. But that on its own won't. And before, even on counter hit, that's the animation it would do. But now, on counter hit, it causes screw, so we can get a juggle from it. Now, you may look at it like that and think there aren't many circumstances when that'll happen, but let's say we record. You can delay the input. Sometimes you'll delay the input trying to catch someone jabbing, for example, and you can catch them. But it's still risky, because they can duck it. That's where you got the mid option, of course. So this is once again, it's a buff, although it's not too crucial to her gameplay. Okay, and the next one, forward 4-3, active frames increased by 2 frames. So when we say active frames increased by 2, that does not mean that the startup's any different, okay? So forward plus 4 comes out the same amount of time, forward plus 4-3 comes out the same amount of time, but that 3 hit has 2 more frames where it's possible for it to hit. So this is a buff, although once again it's not something that we're going to encounter very often really. It does mean that if you hit it later in the animation, it's not going to be as negative, so that's something to consider, but still it's not a move you're really going to encounter much. Okay, the next one, down forward 1 plus 2, causes screw on mid-air hit. Now, I may be wrong about this because I don't really know when this is going to be used, because it's not much damage. But you can see if the airborne down forward 1 plus 2 causes screw, it's 2 hits, and you can see after a launch it's only 20 damage. So that's 2 hits doing 3 and 5 damage early in a juggle. So we're not looking at much damage there, but there may be panic situations where you want to do that instead of whatever other option she has. So that once again is a buff, which is great. The next one, down 2-3, reach increased, forward movement after move increased so opponent is closer. So once again, down 2-3, this is talking about the second hit, okay? So down 2-3, the second hit has more reach. So it travels a little bit further. If the opponent tries to backdash, for example, it's more likely to hit them. That's okay, except once again, this is a high, it's a move you won't see very often. I mean, down 2-3 is a natural combo, and the second hit does launch on counter hit, but it's a high, it's kind of risky, and because you're doing it after a 20 frame low, it's kind of, you can see it coming, right? But you can catch people with it sometimes. Still a buff. And the second one, forward movement after move increase so opponent is closer. Now I think this is a nice buff, especially when you're using it in a juggle. So if you do a down 2-3, you're now a little bit closer to the opponent than you used to be. So it means it's easier for you to link whatever you want afterwards. So that's a nice buff for when you're doing juggles that use down 2-3. And yeah, we do use down 2-3 quite a bit. Okay, the next one, back plus 1, change from negative 18 frame to negative 16 frame on block. The opponent's closer on block, and recovery decreased on hit by 1 frame. So, it used to be negative 18, now it's negative 16. So if we record back 1, previously Nina could punish it up forward 2-1. So, you know, a launcher, a lot of damage. Now, the best you get is back 1 plus 4, which is still good, it's still a really unsafe move. So everyone can launch it, being 16 frame. But it's still a buff. It's less dangerous. It's a little bit safer than it used to be. So that's good. The next one about it, back 1, is opponent closer on block. Okay, so previously when the opponent did it, they wouldn't be that close. So we can see we're at about range 1.5. There might have been some characters, some of their punishes, maybe Nina's down for 2 for example, wouldn't reach in some ranges. Now it will reach more consistently. So that's actually a nerf to the move. They've made that change so that it's easier for people to punish. Alright, the next one, recovery decreased on hit by 1 frame. So we've already seen that the move is less unsafe on block, but we're talking about the recovery frames here. So regardless of the startup frame, so it's still the same speed, regardless of the active frames, after that you're in either attack stun or block stun, so the move recovery, and there's 1 frame less of that. So that actually means, as I've seen a few people mention, you can get more off the juggle. So previously all you could really do was a down 4-1, 4-2, 4, that sort of thing. But now you can get a down 2-3. So that's a buff. That 1 frame of recovery has significantly improved what you can get off that as a juggle. Oops. So So that's a lot better than what you used to get. So that's a nice buff, if you use back 1. Okay, next one, back 222. Opponent reaction on counter hit was changed. So this is an interesting one. So of course we're talking about the last hit of back 2-2. Back 2-2 is a 12 frame punish, 26 damage. Back 2-2-2, 46 damage. It's not a natural combo, okay? So despite what you saw there, it's a natural counter combo. So for example, if we go like this, the opponent blocks the third hit, and it's a high, so they can see it and they can duck. But on counter, oh, not a natural counter combo. There it is, I knew it was. I must have accidentally delayed it a little bit there. So it is a natural counter combo. But we're talking now about if the last hit's a counter hit, okay? So now it launches. Previously it used to knock them back. It could wall splat, but it would just knock them back and give you frame advantage. Now you can get a full juggle off it. This is another move that isn't going to be used too much, because it is high, high, high. If you've just done a back 2-2, they're going to be crazy to press a button to get counter hit there. So it's more on a case of you're doing that, you might delay a little bit and you're hoping to catch them, but they can duck it. Still, it's a buff, it's quite a big buff to that move, so that's good. Okay, next one, back 3. Damage changed from 16 to 10. So when we did back 3 in the past, it did 16 damage, now it does 10. So less damage, that of course is a nerf. Next one, back 3-4. Damage changed from 20 to 17, and opponent reaction changed on hit. So this is an interesting one. So we used to do 20, now we do 17. So overall we do 27 damage. It's still got a long window to hit confirm, which is good, but the opponent is knocked away differently. People are saying they can't avoid a forward 1+2 here. So that's quite nice. Or forward 3, anything OTG. We'll set them so they're not wake up kick, so you can see. So even if they try and quick back roll, whoops, they still get hit. Or if they just try and stand up, whoops. Yeah. Okay, so that's good. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? But the problem with this now is if we go to the wall, this move used to be amazing as a hit confirm with wall splat. So for example, using side step 1 pressure, you could hit confirm it for a wall splat, but now you can't. It sends them flying, or depending on the angle, will send them a little bit away. So you can still get the forward 1+2 or the forward 3 or whatever OTG that you want to use, but you can't get the full wall splat damage that you normally get. If the opponent, if you've got the wall to the left of you, you do back 3-4, not quite like that. Let's rewind. If we're like this, we can get a down 3-4-3, or for example, down 3-2 blonde bomb, things like that. But pretty situational, isn't it? So that is a nerf. So back 3-4 as a whole, I believe has been nerfed. Not only for damage, but because of the reaction. Although still getting the forward 1+2 off it is quite nice. But the wall damage was pretty insane, and because of the range, people didn't really use it away from the wall much. Okay, the next one, forward 3, damage changed from 23 to 24. So go away from the wall again. Forward 3 now does 24 damage. So 1 more damage every time you do a forward 3. So that's nice. That's a little buff. Not too significant, but you know, take damage wherever you can get it. Okay, next one, forward 1+2. So this is forward 1+2 not held, just pressed. Changed from -14 to -5 on block. Opponent farther away on block. Recovery on hit decreased by 1 frame. Causes wall bounce on hit. So let's start off with the -14 to -5. Previously, when this move was used and not charged, it was -14, just like her forward 1+2, the power crush. So Nina, for example, could get like a down forward 3-4 punish, and a lot of characters could launch it. Now it's neg 5, you don't get anything. It's safe. The next thing we're talking about is opponent farther away on block. So this is the pushback. When I block it, you can see I'm at about range 0.5, so half a backdash away, opposed to them being directly by me. So that's alright. That's pretty much a buff as well. Recovery on hit decreased by 1 frame. So like I said before, it's the recovery frames are hit stun. Yeah, it's a hit stun because it's on hit. Means that Nina, after you've done a forward 1+2, you can move 1 frame faster than you used to. So that means that you've got more options, 1 frame to get closer to them during that time. Which is of course a buff. A 1 frame buff, a little bit of a buff, but it can make a difference. And the last thing is the causes wall bounce on hit. So this is the new mechanic. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you've heard of the wall bounce. So we go here, we do a forward 1+2. We can wall bounce them. That wasn't a great example, was it? Break the wall like this. Well, nope. Oh jeez. Oh, an easy option, up forward 3. 66 damage off it just like that. Off a negative 5 move. If we, this is definitely not the fastest way to do that. From here. Lots of different options anyway. Those are definitely not optimal, but those are just examples of what you can get the reward. And similar to that, I mean, you can use it in the basic Oki. If they go stand, ground, back roll. So the Oki everyone knows. If you use this, now you get a wall bounce. Once again, another bad example of what you can do. But, yeah, something like that. Look at that, 111 damage from 1 wall hit into a reset. A safe reset. So that is a very big buff, and it's kind of a universal thing with the wall bounce. But of course, having a safe one that can just be integrated straight into her common Oki is pretty strong. Okay, so the next one we're going to discuss is the Hellbringer, quarter circle forward 1. So you can see here it says the opponent closer on hit. This is really good. I think this is quite a nice buff, and I'm sure you'll all agree with me. So quarter circle forward 1 is a very awesome tool. It's one that most Ninas use a lot. Good for getting in, +1 on block, and it is +3? 3 or 4 depending on the active frame. It's got 2 active frames, so it's +1 or 2 on block, and +3 or 4 on hit. So previously, from what I can recall, on block and on hit, you were left at about that same range. So about range 1 and a bit maybe. Which meant that you weren't at a range where your down forward 2 could reach or anything like that. But now on hit, we're left a fair bit closer. We're left at about range 1, okay. Range 1, range 0.5 maybe. About range 1. Which means that a down forward 2 will reach. As well as many other options. So that's great. So you know if you get on hit, you're at least +3. So you get good pressure. You're close now, so you got more options because of it. So for example, if I were to do a quarter circle forward 1, down forward 2, it'll trade with a 12 frame. As long as you instill fear into people, you can see how that can be used pretty well. So I think that's a very nice buff. Very nice buff indeed. Oh, the other thing about that is because it's closer on hit, it also means you're closer in juggles. You get the idea. So it'll be a little bit easier to do quarter circle forward 1s and juggles. Or to link things after them, I should say. Okay, the next one is quarter circle forward 3. So that's the long range slide. So active frames increased by 2 frames. So that doesn't mean the startup's any different. So the fastest that this can come out is 19 frames. And so the fastest this can come out is still 19 frames, or 21 according to with the quarter circle, according to what Tekken Chicken says. But because of the active frames, on the first one it can still be very unsafe, so it could still be -20 on block or neutral on hit. But as you get further away, as you hit near the end of the animation, you'll be more and more plus. And previously, the most plus you could get on hit was +7. Now, because of the two extra frames, you could get as +9 on hit. That's pretty good. Of course, the catch being the animation's on for a lot longer, so it's easier for them to see it. Likewise, it can go from being -20 to -13. Sorry, it was -20 to -13, now it can go from -20 to -11. So that means if you do it at the right range, even if they block it, they can't launch you. The best they can get is like a while standing 4 for most of the cars. So that's a nice buff. Still a risky move, doesn't change the risk at all, but it just means if you're using it at range and they hit, well, and they block, yeah. Or if it hits, you get more frame advantage. Okay, while rising 1+2. This is the big one, everyone. So damage changed from 14,615 to 17,315. So I'm sure if you do the math there, you can see that it's still 35 damage for both of those. So you might think, oh, that's no different, it's the same damage. And we look here, 35 damage. That's true. But notice that the 3 points of damage were shifted from the second hit to the first hit. Now, what's a common move that we use in juggles? Of course, while standing 1. Oops. Yes. Okay. So because of this, because of the 3 points of damage being swapped to the first hit, it does 3 points more damage. Using it as a while standing punish, it does the exact same damage, so it's exactly the same. Using it in a juggle, as the scaling goes on, it means that the juggle is doing more damage than it used to. You get the idea. So that, for example, is doing, because of the scaling, it's doing 2 more points of damage than it would have before the patch. Now, if you start doing juggles where you're using 5 or 6 of those, you're going to be seeing that's at least 5 or 6 more points of damage. But if you're doing them earlier on, before the scaling goes right down to 30%, you're going to be looking at, you might be getting as much as 10 extra damage. So that's a very significant buff to Nina's damage in her juggles. So that's great, that's a really good buff. Next one, While Rising 3, the Spider Knee. Startup change from 18 frame to 13 frame. So of course, while standing 1+2, 35 damage while standing punish. While standing 3, oh, is now a 13 frame while standing punish 2. If you press 1+2, you go into the multis. Oh. Am I doing the right one? Yeah, I am. So as much as 50 damage there, or 55 damage there. So of course it's a 1 or 2 break guess, and if they break it, you can take 5 damage yourself. But you can go from a guaranteed 35 damage to getting a 50-50, where you could be getting either 50 or 55 damage, or at least a guaranteed 25 damage and a knockdown situation. So that's a nice buff for mixing things up, and variety is very good, of course. Alright, the next two, the last two, approach enemy quarter circle forward 1+2 and quarter circle forward 3+4. Hitbox expanded downward. So, I mean, hitbox expanded downward. The hitbox is where the move makes contact. These are throws, of course. So as it's expanded down but it's not expanded forward, it doesn't mean that the range of these is any better. What it means is if the opponent's doing a move that does not avoid a high, because these are high, but that puts them quite low, it may have previously avoided these throws and now it will not, because the hitbox will connect a little bit lower. For example, let's say Paul's down forward 2, before the patch it avoided a lot of highs, or Nina's down back 2, that can avoid highs, it can avoid jabs on some frames, so it'll go under, it could go under this. Now it's less likely, so it's more of a consistency buff. Once again a buff, so we can't be mad with that, can we? Alright, so looking through, the first one, 1-4, I think we've got a buff. Forward 2-1-4, we've got a buff. Forward 4-3, it's still a buff. Down forward 1+2, it is still a buff. Down 2-3, it's also a buff. Back 1 has been buffed. Back 2-2-2, it's also a buff. Back 3 is nerfed. Back 3-4 is nerfed. Forward 4-3 has been buffed. Forward 1+2 has been very buffed. Forward 1+2 hold has got the wall bounce mechanic, which is, yeah, still a buff really. Quarter circle forward 1 has been buffed. Quarter circle forward 3 has been buffed a little. Wall rising 1+2 with the damage reshuffling is a buff to her juggles. Wall rising 3 being faster, a lot faster, is a buff. And just to the quality of life, hitbox increasing on the 2 throws, that is also a buff. So we're looking at a lot of buffs here, a couple of little nerfs. Overall, I don't think it's going to change any of the game plan but it gives her more potential. So it's quite exciting to see what people are going to come up with over the coming weeks, coming months, and just over Season 2. Alright, as always, thanks everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this, and yeah, it's going to be fun seeing what else we can figure out during Season 2. Please share below what you're enjoying about the changes to Season 2, whether it be about Nina or whether it be about any character.